Hello everyone, my name is Bhagyashri Sisodia, and today, along with my other group members, I'm going to take a curious look at a question that pops up so often in the pop culture. Can The Simpsons predict the future? This long running animated show isn't just known for its humor, but also the moments that eerily mirror real life events, sometimes even years in advance. So let's take a deep dive at it.
So, during our presentation, we will be talking about three famous predictions. First, Donald Trump's presidency. The episode was aired in 2000. Secondly, the smartwatches. This episode was aired in 1995, and Disney buying Fox. This episode was aired around 1998. We'll talk about each of this case in details from our next slides.
One of the writers mentioned, we just look at the current events and extrapolate, and that captures the heart of it. Satire is all about taking real life events, exaggerating them, and using humor to explore what ifs. The writers aren't predicting the future, they're just reflecting on the society, pop culture, politics through a comedic lens, which makes all the predictions feel so spot on. Many fans believe The Simpsons has predicted far too much for it to be a mere chance. The conspiracy claim the creators are either psychics, time travelers, or people who have access to classified info. Some theories dig deeper. They link them with secret societies or shadowy elites who use media to make people aware of future events. In the year 2000, The Simpsons aired a flash forward episode where Bart, one of the characters, saw his future. And to everyone's surprise, Lisa became the president after Donald Trump. The writers joked that she had to clean up a major budget crisis left by her predecessor, Donald Trump. While this may have seemed absurd at that time, but in 2016, 16 years after the episode aired, Donald Trump was elected as the President of America, making this as one of the most famous predictions of the show. And Dan, the episode's writer, later called this as a warning, a vision of America going off the rails. He called it the last logical step before hitting the bottom.
In season 6, episode 19 of The Simpsons, called The Lisa's Wedding, which was aired in March 1995, Lisa gets a glimpse of her future life in the year 2010. In this future, her fiance is seen using a watch to make a phone call. The watch had voice recognition and communication features, basically functioning like the smartwatches we have today. What's amazing is that this was shown 20 years before. Smartwatches like the Apple Watch and the Samsung Gear were actually released around 2014, and now we use them all the time to take calls, text, and even talk to voice assistants. Once again, The Simpsons somehow saw the future before the rest of us, didn't they? In season 10, episode 5 of The Simpsons, titled When You Dish Upon a Star, which was aired in March 1998, the show actually made another bold prediction that Disney would one day buy 20th Century Fox. In this episode, Homer accidentally discovered that Alec and Kim were actually deciding to escape the spotlight. He ends up running the errands for them, but him, being Homer, he spills the beans to the media. So this episode wraps up with a funny scene where Ron Howard pitches a movie idea to a studio executive at 20th Century Fox. Outside this building, there is a sign that is very surprising and says 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Co. At this time, this seemed very funny. But fast forwarding this to December 14th, 2017, Disney did actually buy 21st Century Fox for over $70 billion.
Now I'm gonna highlight the evidences against the conspiracies. Firstly, for the Donald Trump presidency, it was a big one. The episode in question was aired in 2000 and it shows Donald Trump running for president and winning. This clip became a viral sensation in 2015 when Trump actually announced himself, but there is a twist. The clip that actually went viral in 2015 wasn't from the original episode, but it became a promotional video in the year 2015 itself, produced by Fox Animation Documentation Lineup after Trump had already announced his campaign. So it wasn't a prediction, it was simply edited to look like one. What happened here was that people looked back at the episode where it was kind of similar to Trump's announcement and saw the connection. Even though the clip was manipulated and presented as a part of a narrative to fit into that timing. So rather than a case of writers being psychic, it was more about a retrospective confirmation bias. We look back at things and try to fit them into our concept, our context of events we know that have happened. Okay, so now let's talk about the prediction of smartwatches in 1995. In season 6, episode 25, where we have seen a character wearing a wristwatch device, had been claimed to be predicted as today's smartwatch. But here's the thing, the episode that was aired, the technology which was shown in it wasn't exactly like a smartwatch, which it's known in today's day. At the time, wearable techs were already becoming a trend, especially in science fiction. Shows like Star Trek and characters like Dick Tracy had already shown like a wrist communication devices long before this one was aired. So while the episode did feature a wrist worn device, it is more of a cultural reflection of growing interest in personal tech, or like a first true smartwatch didn't appear actually till 2012, years after the episode was aired. It is more likely that writers were just exaggerating a common trend at that time, making an extraordinary prediction. Moving on to the idea that Simpsons predicted Disney purchase of 21st Century Fox in 2017. This claim comes from a 1998 episode titled as When You Dish Upon a Star, where Disney is shown buying 20th Century Fox and other Hollywood studios. Now here's a twist. This wasn't a prediction, it was more of a satire commentary. At that time, Hollywood had actually been seeing a lot of major mergers happening. The writers were just mocking the idea of larger corporations taking over the smaller ones, which was an ongoing trend in the entertainment industry. If you think about it, Disney had been expanding long before the Fox deal. If you look over at them taking over Marvel in 2009 and Lucasfilms in 2012, the idea that Disney had continued to expand wasn't actually shocking in 2017. It was rather than a prediction, this was just another example of them being satirical in the world of corporate acquisitions. Okay, so now let's tie everything together and look at a bigger picture. There are a few factors that explain these so called Simpsons predictions: coincidence, confirmation bias, and writer skill at satirists. Firstly, coincidence and probability. First, let's talk about coincidence. With over 700 episodes, it is not surprising that some events may align with real world occurrences. This is just probability at work. For example, in the case of smartwatch prediction, it is simply a coincidence that the episode aired in 1995 and featured a wrist worn device, which just happens to look like today's smartwatches. The more you create, the more likely some things will seem to come true. Secondly, writers as satirists. Next, The Simpsons is known for satire. The writers are good at observing trends and exaggerating them for comic effect. So when the show mocks something like Disney acquisitions or celebrity politicians, it is not because of they are predicting the future. It is because they are commenting on existing trends. They can see where things are headed and exaggerate it for humor. Next, confirmation bias and manipulation. Then there's confirmation bias, our tendency to look back at things and make connections while might not actually exist. When we see something that fits in that we already know, we are quick to connect the dots. This has happened with Trump's prediction. After Trump announced that he stood up and he win, people looked at the clip that from Simpsons promo and saw it as a prediction, even though it was just edited footage for a later promotional video. Manipulations. In some cases like this, the Trump presidency, the clips themselves were manipulated. The footage that was edited to fit a narrative after the fact, creating the illusion of a prediction that wasn't really there. Lastly, media commentary. Finally, media experts and psychologists have weighed in, explaining that these are so-called predictions are often just reflection of pattern-seeking behavior. We are wired to finding meanings in things, even if it's not really there. The writers of the show are brilliant at tapping into cultural trends, and in doing so, they sometimes create a content that seems like predicting the future, but in reality, it's just satire and trend observation.
My first evaluation will be on Donald Trump's presidency in the episode Bart to the Future, where we see Lisa Simpson as the future president after the Trump administration. This show satirizes American politics by portraying Trump as a former president, with the comedic nature of this plotline gaining attention when Trump became the 45th president in 2017. The show's writers were likely satirizing the idea of a celebrity becoming president when Trump was already a high profile figure known for his business ventures and television career. This type of satire wasn't meant to predict, but rather poke fun at the possibility of an unlikely president. It's important to note that Trump had flirted with politics for decades, including running for president in 2000 under the Reform Party, but this was still 17 years before his actual run. The idea of a celebrity president was already familiar in U.S. politics, as Ronald Reagan had already served as president, making the concept less outlandish. My final thought and evaluation of this theory or conspiracy theory is The Simpsons did not predict Donald Trump's presidency. Rather, they satirized the increasing popularity of celebrities in politics, something that was already happening. The fact that it aligned with a future event is due to the coincidence and the nature of satire and some mystical foresight. My second evaluation is on Disney buying Fox, the prediction in the 1998 episode When You Dish Upon a Star. A scene depicted characters discussing Disney's purchase of the 20th Century Fox. At the time of the airing, this was purely satirical. Disney was one of the largest media companies, but the idea of them acquiring a major film studio like Fox seemed unlikely in 1998. However, in 2017, Disney did not acquire 21st Century Fox for $71.3 billion, marking a huge shift in entertainment industry. At first glance, this appears to be an amazing prediction, but when we look closer, it's clear that The Simpsons were exaggerating the ongoing trend of media consolidation. The media landscape was already seeing large mergers and acquisitions, as Disney was buying up smaller companies like Marvel, Pixar, and Lucasfilm. So the idea of them expanding into other major film studios was far-fetched. It's possible that the writers, through satire, were commenting on the future of corporate mergers in the entertainment industry. Media consolidation. Disney's acquisition of Fox was part of a much larger trend of mergers between major media companies, as this was happening long before Fox deal was finalized. So The Simpsons weren't really predicting anything, as it was simply exaggerating a cultural reality. The show often addresses real-world issues like corporate greed and the increasing monopoly of major corporations, which is what they were doing in this episode. My final thought on this conspiracy theory and my evaluation on it is that the Disney Fox acquisition was not really a Simpsons prediction, but rather a reflection of the ongoing trend of consolidation in the media industry. The writers of The Simpsons were simply exaggerating the media landscape at the time. A final evaluation on the last prediction of smartwatches. The episode took place in 1995 and was titled Lisa's Wedding, where characters are shown using the wrist devices resembling modern day smartwatches. This is one of the more frequently cited predictions by fans of the show. At the time, this seemed like a wild idea. Wearable technology wasn't mainstream concept, but the episode portrayed a future where people use these devices for communication. It definitely looks like a prediction. It's important to know that the concept of wearable tech was already in the air in the 1990s. The smartwatches didn't necessarily appear overnight. They were inspired by advancements in mobile technology and computing. Many companies were already working on early versions of wearable devices. The Simpsons episode exaggerates the technology might look in the future, and just as it has done with other futuristic inventions. It's more of a comedic take on where technology might go rather than an actual foresight into development of smartwatches. My final thought and evaluation on this prediction or theory is while it's impressive that The Simpsons featured a device that resembles modern day smartwatches, this is not a prediction, but rather a satirical exaggeration of the direction technology seemed to be heading in the 1990s. After evaluating these three predictions, it's clear that The Simpsons did not have the supernatural ability to predict the future. And Donald Trump's presidency was likely a satire of the growing trend of celebrity influence in politics, not an attempt to predict his rise in power. The Disney Fox acquisition wasn't a prediction, but a satirical commentary on the consolidation of media giants, a trend that was already apparent. Smartwatches were depicted as a part of the future. This was more of a reflection of technology trends at the time than an actual prediction. The more episodes The Simpsons airs, the more likely that some of its content will align with future events purely by chance. With over 700 episodes, the chances of something predicting the future increase. The show is known for its satire of modern culture, politics, and technology. Many of these so called predictions are exaggerated or comedic takes on existing trends, not actual forecasts of the future. While it's fun to think The Simpsons as a fortune teller, we need to approach these claims very critically. Many so called predictions can be explained by coincidence, pattern recognition, and satire. It's important to remember that The Simpsons reflects the cultural anxieties and trends of its time, not some mystical foresight into the future. The show's success is built on its ability to capture the spirit of the era, and not to predict the actual course of history. While The Simpsons has certainly made some strikingly accurate guesses about the future, these can be attributed to cultural reflection, satire, and statistical probability, not because the show's writers have special ability to predict what will happen. So, in conclusion, while it's entertaining to think that The Simpsons can predict the future, it's important to remain skeptical and to recognize that these predictions are largely coincidental or satirical.